First of all, I thought I'd introduce myself. I'm a chartered engineer. I've got 25 years experience. I worked out it's actually more, but I keep lying about my age, so I'll be quiet about that. I'm director with Capita. I'm director of engineering. I look after the civil and structure team in Bristol. What I must add, I'm not a BIM specialist, I'm not a BIM director. We have that within Capita. What I do though is run projects. And I run projects from small ones up to £160 million projects in the last few years. And that's what I want to talk about, is when clients talk about BIM, what they actually think they're getting and what we think we're giving them, which is not always the same thing. But it's trying to just talk about a few issues that have come out over the last few years. My main experience with BIM over the last few years has been custodial and defence. So I will mention examples as I go through, but I won't actually tell you which they are and where they are, because some of them are not allowed to talk about. But I will use examples of how we've challenged the client or some of their requests and say, are you sure? You really think that's right? So if we work our way through. Also, what I also must add is I sat on the BIM forum for custodial and defence with end clients as well, to try to help them focus where they were going. Didn't always work out, but that's what we tried to do. What I was going to talk about, I won't go through all the bullet points, but it's going to start with saying why we want to use BIM, where we are, BIM requests. Sarah briefly mentioned about how you get some vague requests. I give some examples of what I've had in the last few years, and with no backup and do that. What they actually want and need, the common mistakes, obstacles, and more importantly, how we can help the client. Because that's what's important. Benefits of BIM. You've all seen the benefits graph before. The quick analysis and abortive work. The abortive work, as an example of abortive work, we recently used, I don't know if any of you have been to the BIM cave at Salford University, which is an amazing bit of kit. If you ever get a chance to go there, go and do it. They can load up, the project I was doing was 9 different types of buildings, but 20 actual buildings, uploaded into one giant model, and the client could actually fly through the buildings. Doing that, abortive work, we identified an error in the model, which would have cost £500,000 if it had got to site and not been identified. And on the drawing, the client just missed it. So it's giving them a visual impact, a visual view early on of what's happening, and reduces clashes on site. It still happens. I won't say it's the end all. I got some of my colleagues smiling at the moment. We just had an issue with one. It still happens, but you've got a better chance of picking up early and resolving it quickly. Anticipated savings. These are from the Government Cabinet Office. I'm sure you've all seen these before. But I would say they are statistics, and they can be fudged, fiddled, however you want to explain it. Example of this, one of the clients who've been pushing, government clients who've been pushing BIM, we were asked to review what we thought the savings would be going forward using BIM, and it was us, the consultants, contractors, and the client were all asked to look at it. We were asked to look at all the different stages and all the different types of buildings and say what we felt the impact of BIM would be. I hasten to add that the impact they showed was they didn't allow us to make any additional costs. It was only savings. So they didn't allow you to say, actually, the design may cost you more at this stage. They assumed that everything's a reduction. And that was borne out by the client announcing, when we presented all the figures, that he fully expected all his design costs to be reduced up to tender. And then the contractor standing up and say they anticipated all their costs for design to reduce after tender. So it's managing the statistics in a more sensible manner, because yes, it'd be great if we could get all that, but it's going to take a while. And then we just saw this slide, so it's very much the same. Low emissions, the MEP input into BIM is fundamental, and it's been a struggle for MEP to get up to level where architecture and CNS are at. But the ability to do more accurate daylight revolving buildings so you can better model it. That's where the savings are going to come, and that's where sorry, and that's where that should be the end goal. So this is from the BIM task group, saying the government can devise different improvements in cost, value and carbon performance for use of open shareable asset information. This has been pushed by the push-pull, the government pushing it through the mandatory implementation of BIM, but they need to do the pull with specifying the actual level required, which is not always happening at the moment. And come on, give some examples of where we are. Before we talk where the clients are, I think we need to say where we are as an industry. This is an MBS survey from August 2014. You can see, according to that, we're getting there. But the Building Magazine survey for 2015, which I haven't put up there, said that only 32% of firms are actually using level 2 on projects at the moment. And that's 4 to 5 months before it should be implemented on all projects that are government funded. So we're not there yet. We're getting there, and we think it's going to be a slow, it's not going to be April the 4th, bump, everything's happening. It's going to be a slow step forward. I mentioned the main players. Part of the reason I mentioned this is because they're the two clients I've had a lot of experience recently. Obviously, other local government suppliers and HE suppliers are starting to get on board as well. But often they say they're considering it as opposed to implementing it. I think they're waiting to see what the benefits are with their governments first. I said I would mention some of the recent requests we've had, and I'm sure anyone who's had a tender document in the last 2 years will recognise some of those phrases. BIM compliant, BIM enabled, BIM level 2, BIM project. What never happened, I often get, that's the only phrase on BIM in the whole tender documentation. Nothing else is covered in the document on BIM. And we're supposed to guess what the client actually wants. Without being too negative with the client going back saying, that's rubbish, we can't do that. Or opposite, ignoring it completely and then finding at the end of the day, there's a massive gap between what you think you're giving and what the client thinks he's getting. So what do the clients actually want? That's what we all want in projects, I think. Project and time and budget. Common data environment, CDEs. Yes, they're part of what BIM require. Truthfully, I've been using it on projects for the last 10 years, 15 years. And there's such an asset, even if you're not doing anything to do with BIM, there's such an asset because there's nowhere to hide. You always say your information's been issued, you can't say it's in the post. It's there. And it allows people to interrogate each other's information much easier, and in the focus of collaboration, it is an excellent tool. The CIC protocols are mentioned. That's important, especially when we come to the ownership of models, where people are still twitchy about, if he uses my model, import it into his, and there's a mistake, who's actually liable for that mistake? So it's trying to get over that. And then the FM requirements. FM requirements can be hampered by, is the client actually going to be operating the building at the end? Is it a developer? The developer is not going to care about doing anything to help the final FM unless he can get a better return when he comes to sell the building. So something to bear in mind. And then we've got, obviously linked to that, then you've got two types of clients. You've got the passive BIM client and the active. And the active one is where the FM comes in, where he actually sees the end goal. Put the slide up with the 3D up to 7D. Not many projects actually got the 7D yet. That's obviously what everyone's aspiring to. I think it's going to be a while before we have enough evidence to see if we have done that. Common mistakes. The level of detail requested at tender. I was involved in a tender of a major project, £150 million plus, lots of different buildings. the client requested all the contractors at tender stage to present BIM models with full Kobe data drop on every single building, which we anticipated added £1 million plus to every single tendering contractor's tender. And surprise, surprise, went out the market twice and everyone walked away. So we had to go out for the third time. So sat down with the client, said, this is a totally unrealistic expectation. What you need to do is say to them, it's a BIM cabinet office project, I hasten to add to it, was very important. So you all say you can do BIM, give us one of your recent examples. And you can give it to us tomorrow if you say you've done it before. So it's making sure that you ask for, you control what you're asking for, because otherwise we're all going to struggle to get competitive quotes. The cost savings I mentioned, people need to understand that there will be cost savings, but it may be long term. And also you may need, we talk about unrealistic programming, you may need more design input before you go out to the market. Not always, but you may need it for certain complex projects. Or bring the contractor on board earlier, but have a negotiation with the contractor. Don't go out for open market to a single stage tender. Talk about lack of suitable ICT. It's clients not having the ability to view what you give them, which often happens. You can give free to download software, but as we find here, we can download something on our computers. A lot of organisations won't let you download that software. So just making sure that the client can actually view what he can see. And then people thinking that it's just 3D. I was in a meeting last week and the M&E contractor spent the whole day saying, I'm doing BIM on this, this and this, I'm not going to do it on that. And it's only when you interrogate, he meant he had a 3D drawing of a bit of kit. And he's going around saying he's achieving BIM. Obstacles. Lack of understanding. That's not just the client. I think it's lack of understanding from design teams, contractors. It's the buzzword at the moment, and people drop into conversations. They don't actually understand what they're asking for, what they're saying. Concern of additional costs. Architecture and structure, I think, it's not cost neutral, but it's controllable costs. MEP still have serious concerns of the additional cost of doing something that's fully BIM compliant, and that's going to continue for a while yet. Lack of documentations. Often get told it's a BIM level 2 project and there's no EIR document available. Client looks at you vague when you ask if you've got an EIR document. Procurement route. Under the government construction strategy, the idea is we bring the contractor in earlier. That can help, especially if you bring his M&E subcontractor in earlier, so that it's a nice smooth transition on the M&E model. Mention no long-term FM strategy. If you don't know who's going to be operating the FM strategy, you can't get the information up to the correct level at level 7. Lack of super IT and sufficient time to program it. We've got a recent project we just done where the client delayed, and then all of a sudden we were given 3 weeks to take a design from stage 3 to stage 4 with full BIM information. It's nonsense. All that's going to happen, people are going to push something out that's not fully being clash detected. It's not the way to do it. You need to make sure that clients need to understand they've got to get sufficient time for you to do it right. Because that's the whole point of it, is the fact you do it right, you do it once, and you do it right. How we can help the client. First thing is sit down with them, assess what the actual needs are. If they need to, you need to understand what they want to get out of it, because sometimes it's not always the right solution for them. If it's government it's funded, maybe you have to do it, but it's making sure that you give them the right solution, inform them of the options, show them examples of what we've done before. That allows you to demonstrate the benefits. Clash detection is massive benefit on site, but it's allowing them to, showing the benefits of them being able to view options early stage. And then recommendation on the procurement route. It's, if we are going to follow the construction strategy, it's bringing contractors in early, allowing them to be involved in BIM as well, and demonstrating the overall benefits to the client. That's me done. Short and sharp.
Any questions for Andy? It's fine, I've got questions. I was going to ask one about the recommendations and how you kind of manage a client's expectation about the benefits versus the costs. What's your sort of experience of dealing with that at the moment?
It's the FM strategy. If there's no FM strategy in place, you got to make sure you're not going to give them a level 7, a 7D model that's then just going to sit in the computer and never use.
Okay.
That's the concern. So that the client, you spend all that additional time and money, and they don't use it because they haven't got anyone who knows how to use it.
So are you asking them up front, how are you going to use this data?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Often, what we do, we will get a request that says BIM compliant.
Yeah.
First of all, we go back and say, have you got an EIR document? Because they never issue it. And then we say, what is your strategy going forward? What do you expect to get out of this? You know, what do you actually need? And then tailor it to suit. And more often than not, they're saying, actually, we want the collaboration aspects of it. We want the ability to see the model, the BIM cave being an excellent example, being able to go and visualize what's going to happen, walk through the structure, understand options, have a quick, do some option analysis. You can start moving things around on in the model when it's cheaper, but they actually don't want all the data that's behind it.
So what have you seen in terms of the costs and benefits? Because you said that the benefits are predicted are quite sizable, and the accounting tools for those are quite interesting.
Yes.
So what are the sort of costs versus benefits that you've seen so far?
They're not, so I go back to that slide, but I don't know if I can do this in this. It's a lot of the cost benefits of programming. It's maybe you hit site a little bit later, but everything's sequenced, no clashes, because it's always the rework on site. And if you have to rework on site, it's 3-4 times more expensive and massive programming impact, especially if something's very M&E intensive.
Okay. So you're seeing program shift being slightly more upfront.
That's what we want.
Right.
That's not what we're seeing.
That's what you're working
That's
towards.
what we want. You know, it's clients still give insufficient time at the start to allow for all the models to be produced, to be federated, clash detection done.
And are you starting to manage their expectations in that respect?
Trying to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And some clients, it's Ministry of Justice have been excellent. They took the initiative a few years ago that they were good, and Dee and I, we were involved in a project, Winchester Prison. And
I'm on the Ministry of Justice BIM task group.
Exactly,
So we're
yeah.
delivering those documents in July, which are going to be defined documents which prescribe every single piece of data that's required for them.
Yeah, and they've been the leader. It's no doubt about that. They took the initiative. They said, this is what we're going to do. It's when Terry Stocks was in Ministry of Justice, said, I will push this forward. It's linked to the government construction strategy, which Terry's been involved in as well. And they've led the way, and others are trying to catch up. DIO are trying to catch up. They see it as, Christ, that's what we should be doing. You can see the benefit. But that's part of the reason for that is because although they haven't got it fully sussed out, they know that they're going to have they'll be covering the FM, and for them, FM is crucial.
Okay.
They can't afford to have delays in repairing something.
And so obviously the perceived benefit of having that information into the FM side is different for different clients, as you touched
Correct.
on with developers and with. Okay, so are you working with clients at the moment who aren't necessarily going to be managing these buildings, who are wanting BIM in those earlier stages? And
We're working with clients who will be managing it and at the moment aren't asking for that information, which is, I know, sort of flips it on his head.
Yeah.
And partly because they're nervous how they will handle it when they get it.
Okay. So because they don't know, I won't procure it.
Because I don't know, I won't ask for it yet.
Okay.
Their goal is they will,
Yeah.
but they're too nervous, and that's where we need to assist them to get to that. But the concern, and being blunt, the concern is, yes, you can control that, but then they're going to say, great, you're doing that for your original fee then. So you've got, it's at times you don't want to ask the question because you don't want the answer that you may get. It's just putting my commercial P&L hat on. You want to make sure you can make a profit, and occasionally you can't, because if you give the client a Rolls Royce solution, I was going to say he pays for Skoda, they're not much cheaper at the moment, but you're giving him a budget car price because that's what you thought you're delivering. You can't afford to do that.
Okay. So you're not yet seeing a shift in the programme to reflect the upfront work to generate data, etc.?
No. You do with Ministry of Justice started to do it, and but others not.
Following on from the similar theme,
Yeah.
I've been on both sides of the fence, as in client side and designer side, so I can relate to a lot of the issues that you're relating to. Back to when you receiving tenders which just had one-line descriptions, BIM project, BIM
Yeah.
level 2 and that sort of thing, when clearly, if they are after a BIM project, you'd expect to supply employees information requirements, setting out exactly what they do. What's your response to that normally? Would you provide a BIM execution plan
No,
on how you propose to do things?
It depends, being blunt, depends how you bid the job. So often you'll go back and say, you've asked for a BIM level 2 project, haven't provided EIRs, you haven't got an FM strategy in place. Can you actually use the data that you want from the BIM model? Or, and it's not really level 2 then, or do you just want us to be doing the collaboration of model sharing, class detection, and allowing you to view the 3D model and fly into it and check? And more often than not, they say, actually, that is what we meant. We didn't want all that. We just wanted to be able to check that there weren't any problems on site, and that we have the early doors visualization of what we're going to get at the end of the day. Because nothing worse, and I've done a lot of retail work in the past, and they're terrible for it. That they walk in and you're handing over the following day, and they say, actually, I don't like that, move that wall. Whereas at least then, if you've got them and they put 3D goggles in and walk through the building, you remove some of that risk. You won't remove it all, because it always that will happen, but you remove some of that risk before you get to the site.
Okay, so sounds like you're using it for this upfront kind of visualization sort of benefits
Yeah.
rather than the data
Yeah.
side.
As I said, if we ever get a chance to go to the University of Salford BIM Cave, jump at it, because it is really, really good. It's not cheap to make sure the contractor's got deep pockets, but it is very good, and clients would benefit enormously from it.
I think you can actually hire the caves anyway, can't you, for
Yeah.
use on site, your own premises. So.
Yes.
It's more of a statement than a question. I think
He told me he was going to ask an awkward question. He was trying to work it out yesterday.
I think the biggest hurdle we've got to getting BIM working properly and efficiently at the front end is the way they elect M&E contracts. Architecture and civil structural engineering are always front-end design with plans and specifications, whereas the M&E design, up until contractors tender, is only performance spec. And whilst you're going down that route, you'll never get...
And that's why I said about early contractor involvement. And we were actually discussing it this morning. I've been at a meeting this morning discussing strategy for custodial work. And what more often happens now is the M&E consultant is actually employed by the M&E subcontractor. So it may go through the main contractor, but quickly becomes M&E subcontractor. And the reason, see you tomorrow, the reason for that is the ownership of the model. Because I've sat in a meeting client side where the M&E consultant has been doing his model, the M&E contractor then be saying, obviously we want you to take that forward. And you say, I don't do installation drawings, nothing to do with me. So it's a struggle for them. M&E consultants, quite rightly, Yeah. I'll let you ask the next question. I've been not wanting to do installation drawings because it's a risk. So you've been pushing back to the performance spec, and all of a sudden that's getting flipped in his head, and now all of a sudden you've been asking to do 3D models much earlier without knowing what the kit is going to be in. So it is a risk, because you know, it doesn't matter what you spec, they're going to find something 10% cheaper and put that in.